because last meeting fell on a holiday, and we've been working on, I would say, working on pivoting from kind of sharing ideas and thinking about and working on our various initiatives to now thinking about the end game and how do we get to the finish line in terms of providing an outcome for the UAIM project. So a lot of great work that's been shared so far and been done, and I'm guessing all of you are in the same boat as me, where you've got many things going on, including this effort. And so the challenge is just figuring out how to carve out the time and some focus to achieving that end goal. So I think that's where we're at. That was kind of my welcome and introduction. I'm going to kick it over to Cello and Scott just to give us an update on where we're at with the schedule and where we're trying to get to with the end game, and then we can pivot and start talking about how we want to get there and how we want to use our time together with the idea of doing some workshops in later this month, late March, as well as April. So if that's good with everybody, we'll do that. So a little different this meeting. We don't have a presentation necessarily, so it's a little more getting through the logistics, reconnecting, and figuring out where we go from here. So
yes,
I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have some news on the WEF front. They sent me a document that sort of describes this effort, this vision for, and where we would be going in the next year. And let me just check something, because I have a slide with the schedule that I may be able to share. Yes. So just 1 second. And so that is going to come out fairly soon, and that will be include a letter that has been reviewed by some attorneys that Mark Polling worked with, and a very simple way for utilities to join that effort. So let me just show, okay, this is okay, what our schedule is. Just one second, trying to share.
And while Cello's doing that, I might just kind of fill in a few gaps, because like we've talked about on many of our calls, we're all kind of in different places and joining this UAIM effort at different times. So especially for folks who have just joined this year, this is year 2 of the work that's been ongoing within this CIP delivery and CIP improvement area in particular, and leveraging and using the business process modeling approach to doing that. Of course, that's what we've been focused on. But also Cello has been working on where do we go in the future as we continue to engage in this work. And historically, the last few years, it's been part of the Water Research Foundation project and work under that organization. And he's actually working through, and we're all working through a transition so that in the next year, this will actually be under the Water Environment Federation. So I hope I said that okay, Cello.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're kind of wrapping up this year 2 thing that we're doing with what we've learned and utilizing the tools we've got, and then we're also looking towards the future in terms of where do we go from here. So go ahead, Cello.
Yeah. So this is the schedule for the people topics, which are the joint efforts on the workforce, organizational culture, and change management. And this was shown at last biweekly meeting on the 19th. And it shows that these orange things are workshops. So we're going to have workshops to assess to work on the maturity models and assessment models for workforce, organizational culture, and then also for the integration of change management into it. And so, and this is the schedule for April and May. We need to provide a draft report for the project by March 31st, and then we still have 2 months, which is April and May. As you see, we'll have workshops for the models and methods on the workforce and organizational culture. And then you can see that in May, we're going to have workshops to discuss draft plans for improvement initiatives for people topics and for the topics that we've been similar to what we've been discussing this year. This year we have the business case evaluation, CIP delivery, risk management, and developing asset management plans. So we're making progress on all those. And the idea was that each utility would focus on the things that are a priority for them, and that we would come up with that they would come up with the models and the case studies and so forth, just like we did in phase 2. So there will be some new additions to the our work is going to continue on these topics that we have now until we go through the implementation and develop case studies and so forth. So the plan is also to look at additional topics that utility partners have expressed interest in, which is, so far it's energy management, and the decision was to scale it back a little bit from all aspects of energy management to develop big data requirements for energy management. There is a suggestion that we should also desire to look into analytics, data analytics, especially on the enterprise level, sort of integrating information from different sources that comes from Washington Suburban, WSSE, and energy management comes from Great Lakes. We have some other things that have been proposed by Baltimore, City of Baltimore. So our goal is to have a really solid plan in place for next year in May. It is not yet clear when, what the timing is going to be. WEF is working on it, but they will soon be sending out invitations, and there'll be a form to fill out online, and just like a standard agreement that will be far less difficult and onerous than what we had with WRF. So a lot of good things happening, a lot of work getting done on the people topics as well. So in a nutshell, it's quite quite a few things going on. Scott, did you want to add something?
Well, I think both of you covered it real well. I think looking ahead, there's also going to be a marketing effort by WEF to engage more utilities. And so I just throw out there to the people on the call that if there are utilities that you happen to be working with, or that you run into virtually rather than in person, I'm sure, but you could basically encourage their participation and put them in touch with Cello, and we could clients or utility partners can basically help with that recruiting effort as well.
Yeah. So is that okay, Dan? Is that sufficient?
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm trying to kind of connect the dots between the larger effort that's going on, and then also specifically what our group and each individual utility that's on the call has been working on. And so you're driving towards trying to compile a draft report by the end of March, right?
Right.
And I guess our effort is kind of unique and in a good way, that we're each individually working on our own improvement initiatives. And now we're at a stage where it's like, well, wherever you are in the process, let's pull together kind of a summary of what you're doing and what you've done, as well as any kind of like artifacts, whether it's presentations or business process models you've developed, as or forms or those kinds of things that would help to kind of tell the story. And John and Mike have been helping by reaching out to many of us. I had a good conversation with John a couple of weeks ago on kind of where we were at and what we were going to be able to provide. And I think he's had some good conversations with many of you and kind of collected things. So, I guess what I'm thinking is, wherever you are with what you're developing and putting together as it relates to a case summary of what you've been working on, as well as gathering up some artifacts to be able to share. We want to get those to, I think John's collecting those up. I've committed to sending something to him later this week as far as a draft outline, and I've actually got some narrative put together on a short case summary. We said, if we can get just a couple of pages together to help describe what you've been doing. I've started kind of doing some writing, and of course it's going to be more than 2 pages, and hey, that's good. And then I assume, Cello, then you guys are going to take that information and then kind of synthesize it.
Yes.
Into a draft report then that you would submit to WRF for the project. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I sent out a while ago a spreadsheet like this, just kind of, these are the things that we were looking at as far as business processes, creating the business process models for specific, and then people who are working on these 4 different initiatives may be at, like you said, at a different stage. They may be looking at different sub-processes, just to have a collection of these things and a map, what's going to be, what we would be able to deliver. So some of you have sent this already, so we have some information, but it will be, hopefully some things done by the, but by the end of the month.
Okay. I guess I kind of want to open it up to the group. Do any of you out there have questions about, like I say, we've been meeting and getting together, and then we've also been kind of going back out and working on our own stuff. Do you have any questions about kind of like, well, what am I doing and what should I be putting together, or what should I provide? Do any of you have any of those kinds of questions? I just want to make sure we're not leaving anybody behind. Everybody's quiet on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
I guess I'll say that's a good thing then. I guess that means we're probably getting some people are getting engagement, either that or they're just so busy they don't have time to think this morning.
Well, Dan, this is Scott. I mean, you sort of set the table, and with the agenda too. And like you said, the emphasis going forward is largely in producing some deliverables, taking advantage of, let's call them case studies or individual utility improvement case studies, and maybe some discussion about what people are planning to do and what the expectations are for that, which are kind of flexible. It's not like forcing people to do things. It's just, if you're able to, it's going to, during, this month, next month, it's going to be helpful for you to work with John and Mike, Dr. Mike, and basically pull some information together so we can use a standard format, for the deliverables in terms of what's submitted.
Okay. So yeah, and that's a good transition. Let me make sure. I thought I heard something. If anybody has a question, but I was going to pivot and maybe have John just give us a quick kind of update on how his conversation's been going, and what challenges is he maybe hearing from others. So John, if I can put you on the spot.
Sure. We're making good progress. There's a couple of ones still to be finalized, and I've got questions on. I'll be coming back to you, Dan, a bit later on some of those drawings as well. But it's going well, and I think we're going to make it. We have a new Signavio license, Dr. Mike and myself, so that we can carry on working on them. We're transporting everything over from the old Signavio to the new one, and Signavio are assisting with that because we ran out of space, but we should be all on target to get everything done.
Okay, very good.
John, if I'm not correct, I saw in an email from Mike, I was working on the draft of the report, that he said that there are 800 models now in the water sector value model, and you guys are going to be cleaning it up and organizing.
Yeah, there's 841 at the moment, so yes.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're going to try to do is as we go to WEF and we become part of their platform, one thing that's difficult with these models is to navigate and find what you're looking for. So what I'm thinking is to have a interface that is very graphical and that shows basically the hierarchy, and allows also, and if I understand correctly, John, you and Mike are also going to look at sort of how much detail, or what's sort of the maturity of each model. Is it just the beginning? Can you say a little bit about that?
There's two things there. We need to look at the file structure so that makes sense of where they are. Out of that 841, there are a lot of repetitions, and so it'll automatically come down. Well, yes, we also need to grade them. Some are more mature models than others, and I think that will be important for the users to understand this is where a model started off and this is where it ended up, or this is where people got to in the process.
Yeah, so hopefully whatever the platform is going to be when we move to WEF, it would not be Signavio anymore, but it would be a different way to browse and look at things, and we would still use Signavio to create, but then it would export, so we don't get into a situation where everybody has to buy Signavio, but they can use a tool of their choice. Right.
One of the big challenges, if you like, is the fact of the landscape modeling, which some people have used. Jason, for example, very good process model in there in landscape, which is very valuable, but it's not a BPN model. And we need to address how we're going to handle that, because Signavio doesn't calls it a different name, but Mike's working on that to see how we best handle. I believe he's dealing with that issue with you, Cello, yes?
Yeah.
Zanetta had her hand up here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me put my hand down. I think I can. I don't know if it's going to do it or not. My question is, or suggestion is, how do we plan on presenting this when it moves over for somebody who is brand new? How would they even be able to get an overview? I mean, are we going to put some type of video or something that kind of introduces it? And then do we have, I know you all are working on it, but even have a way that even when people who currently are involved move over, how it's going to be organized? Because I'm kind of concerned about that transition. And because I would think that if I was new to it and I was working on the people topics and how that has gone differently, we don't have the historical models that we have, like for the CIP delivery, all the other other models that we've done with the 4 topics that we had in the past. So I was thinking, just what are the thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a very good point. The original plan, when we started this with WRF, they made a commitment that they would produce the videos. We did develop several storyboards, but the only video, and they produced one, I think, video, but the only video that was actually produced that is really useful was done by Metro Vancouver. So the idea, we created the idea has been that we would have sort of between 4 and 8 minute videos, a library that people would go to get information, because as we were moving files to WEF space, they were in shock, because there's like more than, the spreadsheet had 6,400 lines. So there's probably like 5,000 files there. So you're absolutely right on it. It is even for me, it's a challenge to navigate and find things. So this definitely needs to be streamlined. We already have a folder called onboarding, but to put things in a folder is just really because stuff starts, you start putting more and more stuff into the onboarding folder, and then you have 100 files in there, and a person looks at a folder and says, where do I even start? So we'll have to work on this really hard, and I hope that with WEF we can leverage some of their help and resources to produce these videos. And we found that videos are a lot more effective than documents. People just are reluctant to put a lot of time into reading documents. I see Jeff has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Cello. This returns to the concern I raised when we finished out the previous phase of the project, when I said we really need kind of a 1-page executive summary. I agree with you that videos are even more effective, but people will read something that's less than a page. And so that, and at the time we tried to create one, we ended up having to set it to the side. But there's something, there might be a time to return to that idea as well. Something really concise that draws people in effectively.
Yes, we on the WRF project, we developed a 2-page summary that was kind of, colorful and stuff like that. And the but that's a little bit dated now. So I actually started working on, my first idea was to start revising and produce a new 2-page narrative. And I got halfway into it and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? Because when it's going to be next time that we're going to be at the conference and I'm going to be handing out 2-page brochures. So I thought maybe this needs to be either an interactive, you give somebody a link and they have an interactive way to learn about it, to click on different things, to start with a very short video and then go into more detail where they want and stuff like that. So, and I've started to talk about that with WF. One of the key people, one of the three key people in WF that I've been working with just got a new position, so in a different organization. So it's a little bit. We're not proceeding in a straight line, but this is one thing, Jeff, that consistently people have been asking for, is what they called an elevator speech or a one-page summary. And it has been a bit of a struggle for me to do it, and I'll continue to do my best. But it's, how do you, it's a real, Winston Churchill had a really good saying about that. He said, if you want me to talk for an hour, I can start give me 5 minutes. If you want me to talk for 5 minutes, give me like 2 weeks to prepare, so it's really a struggle.
I think that this discussion is important, and what you said, Zanetta, is, we're really dealing with, two kinds of objective, or two big objectives, and one of them is how do we retain and keep the enthusiasm going among the group of people that have been participating so far, and I think for them feeling included at least in helping to define what the work plan and the agenda will be going forward, so that they can have a personal stake in it, but also looking at the new audience. What is the objective is to bring more people in and to expand this, and why should they do that? What's the the proposition for that? And right now I think Cello's alluding to it, but let's just say there's thousands of files out there and it can be a little overwhelming if you just say, well, here's a site you can go to and go ahead and navigate. But having something that starts simple almost, and then you can dive deeper as you want to with some instructions and guidance, but or a video that explains how to do it maybe, but starting with something simple and then and getting more complex as they want to get involved. But they're going to have to see, why should I do this? And I think that we're going to have to do a good job. I think Cello said through by the end of April or so, with what's the work plan, what's the marketing plan, what's the outreach plan, that is going to be worked on by WEF, and make sure that we're meeting the objective of keeping up the interest with the existing utility participants, but also attracting new ones as well.
All right. Very good. Very good. So yeah, I'm kind of looking through my agenda. Unless anybody else has any other thoughts or comments related to kind of the transition from WRF to WEF. I wanted to kind of pivot and ask a question about back to the schedule, thinking about, we're all working on some draft material. So Cello, tell me, I'm a little fuzzy on like when would we need to we're going to submit some draft material, and then there's going to be an opportunity for us to get some feedback and get that refined. When would you need to have kind of the final products from us to be able to synthesize into a final report?
Yes, although we are recording this, I'll be very frank about this. We were supposed to start work on May 1st of last year. Because of delays on the WRF side, we didn't start. We had originally planned to have a workshop in June. So we started on July 15. So it was 2.5 months late. The work plan was based on 12 months. So then we started work and proceeded, and I learned about 2 or 3 weeks ago that the report, they wanted to compensate for the fact that they started 2.5 months late and said they want to finish 2 months early. So they said, okay, yeah, the project's going until May 1, but we want to have the report by March 31st. So but my view is utility partners are paying for this. We're doing this for the utility partners. If I need to go to WRF jail or, you know, sit in the WRF corner with a dunce cap or whatever, that's okay. But whatever people can produce by March 31st, I will put into the draft final report. The more it is, the better. But we'll still have then, because they want to immediately March 31st send it out to reviewers. So then what I feel is, okay, reviewers are going to come back with some notes and people will have time to see that feedback and finalize their materials in April and May. So that's sort of like that's how I view things. And my own attitude is I'm so grateful that people participate, that they do all these things. And I feel a little bit awkward to, you know, give people deadlines and tell them you got to do this by such and such time. So, but those are the deadlines that I have as far as WRF is concerned.
But Cello, you would also say, though, that we're going to take what we have, but in a lot of cases and with a lot of groups, it doesn't mean that it's finished. In other words, people are going to be implementing their own case studies, and that'll keep going on. So, you know, everyone's at a different place, and it's a work in progress.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Zanetta.
Real quick, just so you let you know where we are. I don't think I really filled out what we were doing, but we've been, of course, working with Mr. Coltis to get our as is for our CIP delivery. And so we plan on having our 2-pager, you know, in terms of our as is and our summary, and then what our plans are for our second half for our to be. So, you know, I think we can make the deadline. I think we're just trying to figure out, you know, just again, the logistics of, you know, just like Mr. Ott said, to when do you really, I would think if they gave you 31st, you want it earlier than that.
Yeah. I also wanted to put things in a little bit broader perspective as I'm looking into the future. And so on the left column, there are the steps of the improvement methodology that we have defined. And we also have then columns for 3 areas of focus, whether it's business process or people or technology. And then change management is really, you know, part of the, so when we look at business processes in phase 1, we adopted the maturity model from CMMI. We defined an assessment method, and the documentation system model, we defined the standard for BPMN, and we produced a number of as-is, the documentation for as-is or state maturities. So this is like, so in the first phase, we focused entirely on getting the sort of business process modeling up and going. In phase 2, which was second year of the project, we worked on, utilities worked on to be state and defined and developed, case studies on that. So that was phase 2. In phase 3, what we're doing what we did last year is we shifted to this collaborative way of developing things. So we've leveraged the work on the business processes done in the first 2 phases. And we also have some example of defining the improvement plans, what we're doing right now. And we have at least plans to implement improvements. So that's what we then expanded in this last 1 year or a few months is, you can see in the second column, we're currently working on defining the maturity models for workforce and organization. And we're basically, when it comes to system models, it's really this framework that we have developed for analysis that we're developing, and a lot of people are involved. So all these blue things are really areas that where we can go in the future with this effort. And what I want to say is that these two things, I will, let me just see. These two things on the technology, they are, I can't, it's conditional formatting, so they are being, let me just try this. I'll call it phase 4, because I'm working on this on a different project, WRF 5039. So we're developing, in the process of developing a maturity model and assessment method for technology. So the results of that effort and other efforts will be available to us in the future. So when we start the next year with WEF, we'll be able to leverage these two things to start including technology into our consideration and scope. But I hope that this helps. Sort of, this is like 10,000 foot level, how to get to kind of fully holistic view and methodology and improvement and stuff like that. There aren't any questions about this, or is this too much?
No, I think, yeah, I think I'll just say, I think we're all still kind of like processing kind of how this is working and how this fits in. But no, this is helpful to kind of know where the overall project is going. So Cello, I think we're driving towards getting some draft case studies and summaries and artifacts to John in the first half of March. So we got March 1 today. So let's keep working with John. And I think I've got a deadline. I've got to meet with John. Hopefully several of you others also have, I'm sorry, not deadline, target date. I like to use the word target date. I'm going to get him something this week. So get John what you got here in the first half of March. And then that'll give Cello, you guys, what you need to help kind of synthesize that draft deliverable to WRF. And then, I mean, we're all putting in good work to get this done and to put together some draft materials. At least what seems beneficial to me and what's been suggested is that we are able to like share this amongst other, ourselves and other utilities and get some feedback. So what was suggested is that we do some form of a workshop or maybe we can do more than one, where we would say in one workshop do like 3 presentations of your draft material. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of, okay, you've gotten a draft put down, and then use that as a way to kind of refine it, share it with others, and get some feedback. And hopefully that also helps you with your actual implementation within your utility. Because again, that's, at least for me, that's the end goal, is to use this process to actually implement some things in your utility. So here's my thought on, just I'll throw this out there on how we get there. I've got my project management brain going here on how to get to the end here. We're going to, like I say, provide those draft case studies to John. And John, maybe as you're following up with people, you can ask, hey, are you willing, or would you be willing to do a say 20 to 30 minute presentation, kind of like what we've done earlier here, but take kind of your business process model, wherever it's at, talk through your process, talk about what you're planning to do in terms of implementation, or even what you have done as part of your implementation at your utility in a workshop. And we can get maybe, how many ever volunteers we got. I think if we get at least 3, we could do like an hour-and-a-half workshop. And if we get, say, 7 or 8 of you here on the call that want to do it, maybe we schedule 2. And based on the timing, I'm thinking maybe we look at doing that in the first half of April. So we kind of say draft deliverables in the first half of March, then we volunteer and start putting together some presentation materials in the second half of March, and then do the presentations and the workshops in the first half in April.
That is a fantastic idea.
Okay.
I'm always hesitant to, I was, before you got online, I said, that you're like, you can take Dan out of project management, but you can't take project management out of Dan, regardless of where they put you, you're going to be doing project management. So it's very much appreciated. And it's a great idea. So what I will do is I'll send a note to, or you could do it, perhaps it'll be even better, to all the people, all the utilities who are involved here, and said, when would you be ready for something like this? And then I can send out a doodle poll to figure out, when we see how many people and when they're going to be ready, we can then structure a schedule for these workshops. And if our biweekly calls are not sufficient to handle the volume, then we can add, another slot for that. Does that make sense?
I think that sounds good. I guess I want to kind of hear from others in the group if that resonates well, or if anybody's like anxiety levels are like, no, I can't do that, or where's everybody on the call on this? I'm like kind of like, am I going to be able to do this or not? But I'm like, I just got to do it. So I think Casey Water, we're going to do something, and I might have to volunteer Scott Parker, because he's doing our business planning piece of it. So anyway, one way or the other, we're gonna do something. But are there others out there who are already like, oh yeah, we would be open to doing a presentation, or is anybody like, ooh, I don't know about that?
Okay, Jason.
Jason gave a thumbs up. Okay, we got at least one. All right. And
We'll be ready.
Okay. So we've got a couple out there, and for everybody else, I like I say, I just wanted to take temperature, make sure I wasn't throwing out an idea that like there was going to be crickets. So okay, very good.
Anybody else? Stephen, I think would you be able to? Stephen Seacrest, do you think you might be able to do that?
I'm not sure. I'm kind of waiting to hear back from John and see how the translation from our materials go, to the business process model notation. I haven't really seen that yet. So when we get there, I'll, I guess, have a stronger opinion.
Okay.
You're
So
all
Maybe.
getting to you either later today or tomorrow at latest. We have some work to do.
Sure, but yeah, we'll consider it if we're ready.
So Zanetta, you said you might be able to have something. Is that correct?
No, we'll be ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Vancouver. Stephen will let us know, and Zanetta. People are not dropping off the call. So Jenny, you think you might be able to have something?
Definitely, I think we can have something submitted. Presenting.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll put you as a maybe.
Okay.
Jonathan did such a nice job in his presentation, Jenny. I mean,
Yeah. So
you guys have a lot of capability.
I'll put it down. Maybe not maybe, but like, how about definitely yes?
How about not?
Okay. Let's see if we have others. So yeah. Okay. Well.
And yeah, so on that, it's okay. So we got some folks that are out there. I guess for anybody, and especially for folks who are willing to present, when we're talking about a workshop mid-April, or is there any preferences on like when we should do it? I'm thinking probably not Monday morning at early hour. And you can think about that, but we'll kind of circle back with folks, but be thinking about that, because obviously getting something scheduled always is a.
Yeah, it is. So we have our bi-weekly on the 15th. So if a couple or three folks, if like, let's say a couple of folks have something by the 15th, then they could take that slot, and then we could add another slot for folks who need a little bit more time.
Just to throw in there, Dan, I mean, I really liked Cello's chart, which basically depicted this is a journey, and we're going to be incorporating over time. You'll be incorporating people aspects, you'll be incorporating change processes, but you're stepping through this improvement process. And it seems like what we have is a variety of stages that people are at. I mean, Zonetta's basically saying, hey, we're going to document the as-is process, and we can communicate that and say what we're going to do in the future. Dan, you're kind of going through the whole delivery process, and Getachew has kind of done a soup to nuts kind of version. But we also have, Jason, who's talked about, like the planning process or a certain kind of CIP project, group of projects. And so there's some different aspects that show, sub processes, let's say, as well as the whole process, and some to greater or lesser degree are incorporating even on the roles and responsibilities. You're dealing with some people side things. You're not, you don't have formally documented a change process necessarily, but, you're, stepping into it. So there's a lot of variety here. And it does kind of show that it's a journey, and it takes time. You can't do it, hey, in 2 months, we're going to have all this fully baked, because you're not.
Right. Well, that's a nice comment too. Just also kind of following up to Steve and John, what you talked about with the business process models. Our business process models need some work too, but I think we're at a point where we're like, well, we didn't have anything before, and so I think there's still some valuable things to share about what you've learned or the progression that you're in as it relates to development of the business process models, or utilizing the approach that Cello has kind of coached us on for the UAIM. So I think it's a great point. We're on the journey here, and it's really more about telling a story about where we've been and where we've come and where we're at, not that we're at the end of it by any means. Is that fair, Scott?
Kathleen, I just noticed, did you have anything you wanted to mention or make a commitment or something like that?
No, actually, I think we are on track. Getachew is, like Dan, you can't take the project manager out of him. He's got a schedule that we've been working towards, and we've worked with John and Dr. Mike to get the models put together. So I think we're in good shape.
Okay, that sounds good. So we have, we'll have actually a very nice set of things then. So,
Okay.
And thank you for introducing Dan's structure and deadlines and things that needed to be done.
So, well, as a good project manager, you set a deadline knowing, you might not make it, but that's all right. You get close. We'll get close, and we'll get there. So I just, like I say, I also want to be realistic for us and not create any unnecessary stress. A little bit of productive stress is okay, but I feel pretty good about where we're at, and I like what we've done as a group. And so I think the real key here, from my perspective, is like, we want to make sure we have opportunity to share and celebrate that as we as we put this together. So I wouldn't want it to end on just putting together your case study for the draft, although I think that's going to be value added as well. It has been already for us, but to also then be able to like I say, put together some presentations just to share. And again, they don't have to be, this is not a high pressure, WEF annual conference type presentation. This is kind of similar to what we've been doing, which I think have been very good in the last several months. So
what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a workspace on OneDrive and make it accessible to teams. And I'm going to make a folder for each one of the utilities, and the workspace is going to be called Final Report. And then so that people can see what others are contributing, and places where you can post your drafts and stuff like that, so that we keep track of everything in kind of a structured way. And I'll make it accessible through Microsoft Teams as well.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Well, we've got a couple of minutes left. Any final thoughts or words?